Boss has been an innovator in the stomp box industry for over 46 years, and since like 1977, the design of their compact pedals hasn't really changed, and they've released a ton of them. One of their latest releases is the IR-2 amp and cabinet pedal. Now, before we get started, this pedal was provided to me for the purpose of this review from the good folks at Zounds.com, and I will be returning it to them at the conclusion of this review. All wording and opinions are my own, and I was not paid by Boss or Zounds to make this video. The IR-2 comes with 11 amp types and preset Celestion IRs that can be customized, but already sound really good. While it's easy to use, some features are easier to access and adjust from your PC with the IR loader software, such as ambience type, output select, amp and cabinet switching, and your loopback, and I'll explain all that stuff in a little bit. Let's take a closer look. On top you have your amp selection, your bass, mid, and treble EQ, as well as ambience, level, and gain knobs. On the input side, you have the loop return, input for your guitar, and channel select. With the channel select, you can use the FS5U, FS6, and FS7 foot switch. When you have one of those plugged in, the pedal foot switch only works as a bypass. On the back side, you have your typical 9-volt power input, headphone jack, and USB-C. You can use a headphone jack for monitoring while recording from USB or just jamming along. When using headphones without a 9-volt power supply, the battery will die faster. On the output side, you have the loop send, output A, and output B. Output A is your mono output. With the send and return, you can use the pedal like an amp and an FX loop, running other pedals through the loop in the order you prefer, and even run a looper through it, and that is such a great option. Your 11 amp types are clean, which is just a clean sound. Twin, as you can expect, models a Fender Twin Reverb. Tweed is a Bassman 4x10. Diamond is a Vox AC30. Crunch is a crunch amp with MDP for a crisp tone. Brit models a 59 Marshall. High gain is a basic high gain amp using MDP to obtain a high gain distortion. Now, if you don't know what MDP is, MDP, it's technology that Boss and Roland use in several of their pedals, and it stands for multi-dimensional processing. In the most basic terms, it takes your guitar signals and splits it up into different frequencies and dynamics, and applies different effects and optimizes the sound. Back over to the pedal, SLDN models a Soldano SL0100. Brown, well, we all know what the Brown sound is. Modded, one of my favorites, is another high gain amp that also uses MDP. And lastly, R-Fire models channel 2 of the modern mode of a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier. Using the pedal's basic function is easy, so I don't feel like I need to explain the knob functions. They're pretty self-explanatory. So when the LED is off, it's in bypass mode. And then you have green and red mode, or red and green channels. So you basically have two channels to program and to choose from when you're using it. While you're in either mode, you make adjustments to the amp type, and knobs to obtain the tone you want, and it auto saves about 2 seconds from the last adjustment. So every time you make even the slightest adjustment, it'll save it 2 seconds later unless you unplug or power it off before that 2 seconds is up. Now, let me clarify, the settings you make stay when you power it off. They're still there. But if you power it off somehow before the last 2 seconds that it auto-saves, then it won't record that very last adjustment. When you have either red or green mode set, simply press the pedal, make adjustments to your second amp, wait 2 seconds, and it'll save it. And now you have two channels to choose from. Simply quick pressing it switches between the channels, and a long press will put it back into bypass mode. Now, within the IR loader software, you have some other options. Let's jump into the software and take a look at those. So once you have the software loaded, the pedal plugged in, drivers all installed, everything's ready to go, you open it up, it'll show you your IR loader. Now these are your IRs, your speaker types, and over here is your amp type. Looking at the editor, the amp and cab switch lets you turn one on or off your cabinet or your amp with 3 different options: amp on, cab on, cab off, amp off, and cab on. Now the ambience type, it's basically your reverb, and you have room, hall, and plate. Right now it's selected on plate. We'll leave it there for now. The output is used to adapt the pedal to various amps and inputs to make it sound better to that amp or line type. So if you scroll through here, you'll see different types of amps and combinations of input or return. So if you selected one of those and you weren't actually plugged into it, the pedal's going to sound totally different. I'm using it right now as line, and I've got it connected to my USB-C. So I'll just leave it at line. Now your return mode, you got mono and stereo, and if you're using stereo effects, you need to have a TRS cable from that stereo effect plugged into the send side of the IR-2. And down below here, you have different USB settings. As I mentioned, all of these features are much more easily accessed with the Boss IR loader, but you can also make the changes using the pedal knobs in various combinations while plugging it in. It's kind of weird and sort of complicated. You have to turn one knob all the way down, another knob all the way up, and you have to have the amp select on a certain amp. And explaining it would take way too much time there, but if you're interested, you can check it out in the manual on Boss's website. Let's hear some factory sounds real quick, and then I'll show you how to load one of my own IRs into the amp or two so you can hear the difference. So I've got the pedal on, and I've got it connected to a Boss NS1X over here because I get a little noise from all the lights and cameras and monitors. I've got that just to get out any kind of interference, and it works great. So let's just go over the basic factory amps. So on clean, twin, tweed, diamond, crunch, Brit, high gain. Now with some of these we can crank up the gain a little bit. SLDN. Brown. Modded. And lastly, R-Fire. So those are the basic amps. Let's dial one in. Let's dial the modded in. And we'll give it a little more bass, scoop the mids a bit, and give it a little more highs here. We'll leave the level right about there, turn up the ambience, and get some gain. Now that one's saved. I'm going to switch over to red channel, and let's put it on more of a cleaner amp. So I'm going to let that one save. Now you can hear. Turn the level on that so we can match it. Now let's go to the software and load an IR. So since I'm using the modded and I'm using the twin, let's change the twin first. Let's hear the twin. And we're going to click the load button, and I'm going to go to my IRs here, and let's try a greenback with a 57, 3 inches from the cap. I'm just going to load it. Now that it's loaded, and then I'll show you how to clear it real quick. So let's say you don't like that one, you want to go back to factory. You come up to editor, you go to slot reset, you go back up to the twin, the one you want to reset, and you reset it, and it's going to say okay. And then you can close that. And back here, it's back down to user 2. And with the IRs, it can drastically change it, or it can change it just a little bit. Now let's go down to modded. Let's hit the load button on the modded one. And we're going to load up a Glenn Fricker V30 with a 440 microphone. Switch back over. It sounds a lot more bassy, a little more ballsy. Let's reset that one. So those are the basic functions of how you can load an IR, how you can use the software, and how you can reset the IRs. Now, it still amazes me what Boss can fit into the same pedal for so long. Now, the IR-2 is a great option for live setting or recording into an amp or soundboard or an interface. The stereo outputs and the center return are some of the best features, but I really like the amp selection that they have available in this pedal. It's very similar to the AIR-D software that they use in the ME90 and other things. Now, I've also used this to record through USB, and it works perfectly. I even ran my bass guitar through it. If you want to hear a short song I kind of threw together really quick, playing with the stereo output, stick around at the end, and I'll just kind of let it play with the picture of the pedal, I suppose. It's nothing special, but I had fun playing with it. Now, while simply testing it, and getting to know it, I used the headphones with it, and I was so glad it had that option. It just made it so easy, and it came in handy when monitoring USB recording. Priced at $179, the IR-2 is one of Boss's higher priced stomp boxes, but for what they pack into their signature long-lasting housing, I think it's well worth it, and it'll probably last longer than the compatibility of the IR loader software that it uses. If you're interested in purchasing Boss IR-2, there is an affiliate link to Zounds in the description below and the pinned comment, and it costs you nothing more to use that link, and it helps to support this channel. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.